So now let us see the second pratyaya for today, that is the Shanach pratyaya. Okay, so what does Shanach pratyaya denotes? Again, they are very similar to each other, Shatra and Shanach. Essentially, they do the same thing. So that is why agent who is doing or agent who will be doing. So that is exactly what we saw for the Shatra pratyaya. So that is the same thing that the Shanach pratyaya also do. The main difference here, that I'll come to this point later. The main difference between Shatra and Shanach is, while the Shatra pratyaya is used with Parasmayapadi dhatu, see here, the Shanach pratyaya is used with the Atmaneyapadi dhatu. So that is the main difference between these two, Shatra and Shanach. Shatra for Parasmayapadi dhatu and Shanach for all the Atmaneyapadi dhatu. So that is the key difference between the two. And apart from this, the Shanach pratyaya, this also does something extra. That this also denotes an object which is being done or object which will be done. So see, Shatra only denotes the agent, but Shanach, this can be used to denote the object also. That object which is being done or which will be done. And it can also denote the bhava, that is the action itself. See, both this object and bhava, all this come under the karmani prayoga, right? If you remember this thing, that all this come under the karmani prayoga. In karmani prayoga, that is the passive voice, the object, that is pradhana. The karma is the pradhana. So whenever we are constructing a passive voice sentence, a karmani prayoga vakya, so there to describe this karma, that is the pradhana there. So to describe that karma, that object, the Shanach pratyaya can be used. Again, this will be more clear when we take the examples. Okay. But essentially, Shatra and Shanach, they do the same kind of thing. Again, what are the it letters? So the Shakara and the Chakara, these are the it letters. So what remains, this Ana, this is the main content of this Shanach pratyaya. But then a lot of you may have noticed this thing, that whenever we create a Pratipadika using Shanach pratyaya, what we get at the end is this Mana. So this Ma, this additional Ma, before this Ana, this comes due to this point, that if there is a A ending Anga, that is, if after doing all the modifications, whatever is there before that final thing pratyaya, final Shanach pratyaya, so if that entire thing that is ending with the A, so there you get an additional Ma before this pratyaya. That is why this Ma plus Ana, this becomes this Mana. So this Mana is what you may have noticed if you have noticed the words made out of Shanach pratyaya. Again, we'll take the examples, it will be clear. So this is all the detail for Shanach pratyaya. Again, the required modifications for the dhatu, same thing. Since this also is a replacement for lat and rit lakara, so the dhatu undergoes the same kind of modification as it does when it becomes a tinganta in lat and rit lakara. Same thing that we saw for the Shatra pratyaya also. Okay, so with this, let us take one example. Vartamana. And Vartamana, such a common word in Hindi, Vartaman is used to represent the present, right? So Vartamana, that which is existing in the present tense, that which is existing. And this Vartamana, this comes from, if you can already guess, comes from Vrit Dhatu. Vrit Dhatu means to be, to exist, Vrit Dhatu, right? And again, since we know that Shatra and Shanach, they are like a replacement for Lat Lakara and Rit Lakara. So Vrit Dhatu, in Lat Lakara, Prathama Purush Ekvachanam, what is the form? So the form is Vartate. So this Vartamana is just a replacement for this Lat Lakara form. So if we know how this Lat Lakara form came to be, then all we have to do is replace that last thing pratyaya with the Shanach pratyaya. Okay, and then we have this form. So let us see how this Vrit becomes Vartate. So again, whatever mechanism we saw before with Shatra pratyaya, that is going to be revised. Just a difference is that since Shatra pratyaya, they are used with Parasmayapadi dhatu. So there the thing pratyaya was Ti. Okay, Prathama Purush Ekvachanam, Ti taha anti. And here, since these Shanach pratyaya are used with Atmanepadi dhatu, so the thing pratyaya is Te, Ete, Ante. That is why you have the forms like Sevate, Sevete, Sevante. So that is the only difference, that the thing pratyaya we are going to use here is this Te. So you have the dhatu, you have the thing pratyaya, and then of course you will also have a Vikarana pratyaya, okay, based on the Gana Chinna. So since this Vrit dhatu is also a Bhavadi Gana, just like Pat and Bhu, so the Gana Chinna, the Vikarana pratyaya that comes, we already know is this A. Okay, so this is the equation, Vrit, A and Te. And then again, just as we saw for Bhu dhatu, that due to a certain rule, this Bhu, this U, the Guna happens. So the same rule applies here with this penultimate swara also. That if this penultimate swara belongs to ik vowel, all the vowels except A and Dirgha A, if the penultimate vowel is any of those vowels that belongs to ik pratyahara, so this also gets a guna. So the re swara in this Vrit gets a guna, becomes ar. So we get this Vrit changes into Vart. Okay, so we have this Vart, then we have this vikarana pratyaya, and then we have this ting pratyaya, and then this is what the final equation is. No more sandhi is possible, so we combine them together and we get this kriya pada vartate. That is what we see, lat lakara prathama purush ekvachanam vartate. Right, so I hope till this everything is clear. We have already seen this mechanism before also, and now if we have to use the shanach pratyaya instead of this vartate, this kriya pada, so all we need to do is we need to remove this te. Instead of this ting pratyaya, we need to use our shanach pratyaya. So we need to bring this ana. So the equation we have is vart a and then ana, the ting pratyaya replaced by the shanach pratyaya. Okay, and now before finally combining them, you have this rule that the a ending anga gets an additional ma. So to understand this anga, just think of it, everything that is before this ting pratyaya or before this, now this shanach pratyaya. So everything up till this point. So anga is like a technical term. When we create a tinganta from a dhatu, so that modified dhatu, that assumes this technical name anga. Okay, so varta, here we have this a ending anga. So we will get this additional ma. So we will get this additional ma before this ana. So essentially we are kind of adding a mana. Okay, so this is the equation we have, vartamana. That is what you get as the pratipadika, vartamana, that which is existing or one who is existing. Okay, because vrit, this means to exist, to be. Okay, so I hope this is also clear. Again, exact same mechanism as shatru pratyaya. The only difference is that ting pratyaya, instead of ti you have a te, and instead of that main content at you have a ana. That is it. So now when we move on, we have the same dhatu, but here it is the shanach pratyaya is used in the sense of future tense. That is, it is replacing the lit lakara. So vartishyamana, that which will be existing, one who will be existing in that sense. Okay, and by now you know this point, that this vartishmana, this is just like a replacement for the kriya pada vartishyate. This is the kriya pada in lit lakara prathama purush ekvachanam, vartishyate. So you have the dhatu vrit dhatu, you have the ting pratyaya te. Okay, since we are talking about lit lakara, so we know that unlike lit lakara, which gets a gana chinha as the vikaran pratyaya, this lit lakara we know gets a sya. This we have seen before also. Okay, and we also check whether this vrit dhatu is a set or anit dhatu. If it is a set dhatu, which is vrit in this case, so it is going to get a it agama. So it is going to get an additional e also. And then there is one sutra that again we saw before, that if you get a sakara as a pratyaya or as a adesha, and if before that sakara there is any letter that belongs to in pratyahara or there is any letter that belongs to kavarga, so in that case the sakara is going to change into the shakara. So here in this case, since this sakara is preceded by e which belongs to this in pratyahara, so this sya is going to become this sha, because the sa is going to be changed into this sha. Okay, and see, for all practical purpose, you can see whenever this it agama is going to happen, then you already know that this, instead of this sya, you are going to use sha. That is it. Because this rule will apply, sa will become sha. So whenever it agama is going to happen in all the lit lakara form, this sya will be replaced by this sha. So okay, so just remember this. So anyways, the equation now is vrit, then it agama e, then the vikaran pratyaya sha, and then you have the ting pratyaya te. And before we combine them together, just that same rule again, that this vrit, the riswara, this is going to get a guna. So this vrit is going to change into this vart. That is what we saw in the lat lakara form also, right? Vartate. So that same rule applies to the penultimate ik vowel also. So vrit becomes vart. So you have vart, you have this e, you have this sha, and you have this te. And now you simply combine them together. No more sandhi is possible. So it combines as vartishyate. That is what you get as the kriya pada. That is what you get as a tinganta in rit lakara prathama purush ekvachanam, vartishyate. Okay, so actually see, through this shatra and shanach, we are also getting a bit of a taste of this ting pratyaya also, tinganta also, their mechanism also, right? So nice, no? Like a bonus. So anyways, vartishyate is the kriya pada, but we are going to use shanach pratyaya. So instead of this ting pratyaya, we are going to replace it with this shanach pratyaya, that is this ana. Okay, so this is what we get, and then again this rule will come, that a ending anga gets an additional ma. So since vartishya, here also if you do this halanta, so you have this a, right? So it is ending with the a, this up till this point, this anga, this is ending with the a. So you are going to get this additional ma. So basically this is the final equation. So vartishyamana. So this is what you get as the pratipadika, vartishyamana. But just hold on, there is one more additional rule I am going to introduce here. This is again a part of another sandhi that we generally refer to it as natva sandhi. Okay, what happens is under certain conditions, the nakara changes into the nakara. Okay, see, that is the reason that balaka, that in Tritiya Vibhakti Ekvachanam becomes balakena, but something like Rama, it becomes Ramena. See, that is the reason. Natvam Sandhi happens, that na, due to some reason, becomes this na. And again, since I don't want to digress, so I'll just leave the name here, Natva Sandhi. Okay, in the Sandhi Ashtadhyayi Sutra sheet that I attach in the description box, you will find the sheet in the description box below these videos. In that sheet, you have all these Sandhis. So you can go through this Sandhi, Natvam Sandhi, how exactly the Na becomes Na, under what conditions. Okay, the essential rule is, if very simply I have to tell you, whenever a Nakara is preceded by a Rakara or a Shakara, so whenever a nakara within a pada is preceded by a rakara or a shakara, so that nakara changes into a na. But again, there are certain conditions also. So I'll just leave the name here, Natva Sandhi. In that Sandhi Ashtadhyayi Sutra sheet, you have all these Sandhis, all these details are mentioned here, okay? And that same rule is applying here also, that due to this sha, as I said, no, that before nakara, if there is a ra or a sha, then there is a possibility of this sandhi. So due to this sha, this sandhi actually happens with this word. So vartishyamana, this actually becomes vartishyamana. The na changes into na. That is what you get as the final product, vartishyamana. And what is the meaning of this pratipadika? The meaning of this pratipadika is same as lit lakara prathama purush ekvachanam, that one who will be existing, that which will be existing in the future tense. Okay, so I hope this entire mechanism, this everything, this is clear. Now let us move on and take some another example. So now we have this pratipadika dhavamana. Dhavamana is one who is running or someone while running. Okay. And again, the dhatu here is dhava dhatu. The sense this pratipadika is making is the same sense the lat lakara prathama purush ekvachanam form will make. Okay. Basically, it is a replacement of lat lakara. So what is the kriya pada form that we have is this dhavate. Again, I will not go into this full detail. You have the dhatu dhav, you have the ganachinha, you have the ting pratyay, you combine them together, you get this tinganta dhavate. Okay, the lat lakara. But instead of using ting pratyay, if you wanted to use shanach pratyay, so it will just replace that. So what you have is this dhava a, and then you have this ana. And again, since this anga is ending with the a, so you will get an additional ma also. So what you have is this dhava mana. That is how you get this pratipadika dhava mana, one who is running, or that is while running. Okay, so that is how you get this word. And then similarly, you have the lit lakara replacement also, dhavishyamana, one who will be running. Again, this is just a replacement of the lit lakara form, that is this dhavishyate. Okay, so again, the construction is same as what we saw before, so no need to go into that same mechanism. Dhavishyate is the lit lakara form, and the replacement is using shanach pratyay dhavishyamana, one who will be running, okay, denoting the future action. Then you have a pratipadika sevamana. Sevamana is one who is serving. Why? Because the dhatu is sev dhatu. Sev dhatu is to serve. And from this dhatu, if we use the lat lakara form, that is the sevate. So sevate is one who serves or one who is serving, which we created using the same mechanism as we saw before. Sev is also a bhavadigana. So you have that same vikarana pratyay, then it is an atmanepadi dhatu. So you have the same ting pratyay te. So this is how we got this sevate. Instead, we are going to use the shanach pratyay. So we are adding this ana. And again, since this is ending with this a, so you will get an additional ma. So what you get is this sevamana. That is what you get. Sevamana, one who is serving. So sevate, this is the kriyapada made using ting pratyay, while sevamana, this is the kridanta. This is a kind of a namapada. It is a pratipadika made using shanach pratyay. Okay, so I hope all these examples are getting even more clear, because we have already gone through these mechanisms of creating tinganta in the shatra pratyay. So I hope that all these examples are a lot easier than what we had before. Now you see this pratipadika sevyamana. Okay, so what we saw earlier was sevamana. Here it is sevyamana. And see, the meaning is also different. One who is being served. So this is this thing that we have already seen. So far what we saw is the agent who is or will be doing. So we were talking about the agent, the karta. But here we are paying attention on the object, that object which is being or will be done. Because shanach pratyay can denote both the agent and the object, and it can also denote the bhava, the karma itself. Okay, so a slight difference. And now you can ask a question that, okay, sevamana, that was the replacement of lat lakara form. This sevyamana, when we are talking about the object, this is a replacement of what form? So see, this sevyamana also comes from sev dhatu, and it is also a replacement of lat lakara only. The only difference is this is the replacement of the karmani prayoga form. Okay, when the structure is written in the karmani prayoga, in the passive voice, then the form that we use for the kriya pada, the karmani form, it is the replacement of that. Because we are talking about the object, we are talking about the karma. Here, the karma is pradhana. So we are taking the karmani prayoga form. Okay, so just quickly for all those who might get confused here, see, when we search in Ashtadhyayi, when we search any dhatu, say pat dhatu, so the usual forms that we know, patati, patataha, patanti, patasi, patataha, patat, all these forms are this kartari form, if you can see here. These are the kartari forms. And if you drop down, so you have the bhava and the karmani. So there the forms are different. There the forms are pathyate, pathyete, pathyante. So whenever we are creating a sentence in karmani prayoga, so the same lat lakara, same prathama purush ekvachanam, but there the forms are the karmani forms, not the usual pathati, but pathyate. Okay. And same thing you can spot here for the dhatu in hand, that is the seva dhatu. So in kartari prayoga, the forms are sevate, sevete, sevante. This is what we know. And in bhava and karmani, the form is sevyate, sevyete, sevyante. Because we are talking about the karmani form. So this sevyamana is still a replacement of lat lakara form, but it is a replacement of the lat lakara karmani prayoga form, that is this sevyate. Okay. And now see, we have seen the kartari form so far. Let us quickly see this sevyate also, that how do we get this karmani form sevyate. So see, very simple to understand. Essentially the same thing. You have the dhatu sev, you have the, because all the karmani forms are atmanepadi forms only. Even though the dhatu is parasmepadi, atmanepadi does not matter. The karmani form and the bhava form, bhava and karmani, same kind of forms. So the karmani forms are always atmanepadi forms, always atmanepadi form. So since it is going to take the atmanepadi form, so we know the ting pratyaya is the te instead of that ti, which we generally use for the parasmepadi forms, right? Patati, patataha. So that ti, that is replaced with this te. Okay, and see, anyways, we are studying shanach pratyaya, right? And we already know this thing, that shanach pratyaya is anyways used with atmanepadi dhatus only. So anyways, we were using this te, this thing pratyaya only. But this point needs to be known, that all the karmani forms of any verb, they are always in the atmanepadi form, even though the dhatu is parasmepadi, atmanepadi, ubhayapadi does not matter. The karmani forms are always atmanepadi form. Okay, so you have the dhatu, you have the ting pratyaya, and then what about the vikarana pratyaya? What kind of vikarana pratyaya comes for the karmani forms? So the kind of vikarana pratyaya that comes here is this ya. Okay, again the name of this pratyaya will be slightly different. That is the wrapper name. I am not using it to simplify the matter. I am just putting what essential content remains. So you get this ya as a vikarana pratyaya whenever you are creating this karmani forms. That is why, remember, for pathati also what you got was this ya. That is why the form was pathyate. You got this ya in between. And so this is the equation that we get. We combine them together, we get this form, this kriya pada form, sevyate. Sevyate. The lat lakara prathama purush ekvachanam in karmani form, sevyate. And since it is a karmani form, we are giving the karma, that pradhanata, that importance. So this sevyate is saying the object which is being served, or someone who is being served. Okay, sevyate. And here again, instead of using the kriya pada, we are going to use the shanach pratyaya to create a pratipadika with the same meaning. So all we need to do is again just remove this ting pratyaya and instead use the shanach pratyaya. So instead you get this ana. Okay, rest all the modifications, everything stays the same. So you have this sevya, again a ending anga. So again this sevya, this has that a, right? So due to this rule, you are getting that additional ma. So essentially you are getting this mana. So what you have is this sevya mana. That is what you get here. Sevyamana, one who is being served. Okay, so I hope this point is also clear, that we have seen Shatra and Shanach work as an agent, as a karta who is doing or who will be doing. But Shanach does something extra, that it can also work with this karmani prayoga, and there the karma pradhana, so the object which is being done or the object which will be done. Okay, so again the same thing. Instead of lat lakara, you take the lit lakara form, so it will become one who will be served. Okay. Now you see this pratipadika labhamana. Labhamana, one who is obtaining. Why? Because it is coming from the labh dhatu. Labh dhatu is to obtain. Okay. And in the lat lakara, you get this form labhate. Sah labhate. He obtains or he is obtaining. Both the lat lakara can denote both the present action and the present continuous action also. So saha labhate, he obtains or he is obtaining. So as a substitute for this lat lakara form, we are using the shanach pratyaya, Why Shanach? Because labh, this is a Atmanepadi dhatu. So we can't use Shatra Pratyay, we have to use Shanach Pratyay. So again, the same mechanism as we have seen before, this labhate as a Kriya Pada, and if we'll use Shanach Pratyay, so we'll get this Pratipadika labhamana, one who is obtaining or one while obtaining. Saha labhamanaha, one who is obtaining. Balakaha labhamanaha, the boy who is obtaining. Balakau labhamanau, two boys who are obtaining. Okay, so in that same way, this Pratipadika will take the same Vibhakti Vachana ling form as its associated Namapada, the noun. Okay, so I hope this is also clear. And again, this is denoting the agent, the Karta who is obtaining, right? We can denote the object also using Shanach Pratyay, that which is being obtained. So this Labhyamana is just the replacement of the Labhyate. That is the Lat Lakara form in Karmani Prayoga, coming from same Labh Dhatu. So Labhyate, that which is being obtained, same thing this Labhyamana is given. That which is being obtained, describing an object which is being done. The only difference, this is the Kriya Pada in Lat Lakara Karmani form, and this is a Pratipadika created using Shanach Pratyay. And then you see Lapsyamana, one who will be obtaining. Okay, so this is denoting a future action, right? One who will be doing, one who will be obtaining, Lapsyamana. So we know that this Lapsyamana, this will be a replacement, this will be a substitute of Labh Dhatu in Lit Lakara, right? So anyways, to create a Tinganta, a Kriya Pada from this Labh Dhatu in Lit Lakara, again, you have this Labh Dhatu, you have the Ting Pratyay, that is this Te, because Atmanepadi Dhatu, right? And then as a Vikarana Pratyay, we know, since it is a Lit Lakara, so we know as a Vikarana Pratyay, we get this Sya, right? Okay, and then we also check whether this Dhatu is a Set or Anit Dhatu. Since this Labh is a Anit Dhatu, so the It Agama, this will not happen, because Labh is a Anit Dhatu. So the equation is going to stay like this, that you have the Dhatu, you have the Vikarana Pratyay, you have the Ting Pratyay, Labh, Sya and Te. So we are simply going to combine them together. We will check if any Sandhi is happening. Yes, a Sandhi is happening between this Labh and Sya. And which Sandhi is this? So this is the Chartva Sandhi, which is denoted by the Sutra Kharicha, due to which this Bha, this will change into the Prathama Vyanjana of its Varga. So this Bha belongs to the Pa Varga, right? So this Bha will change into the Pa. So this becomes Lap. Labh becomes Lap. Okay, and as I said, this happens due to the Kharicha, that is the Chartva Sandhi. So the equation now that you have is this Lapsyate. And this is the Kriya Pada that you get from Labh Dhatu in Lit Lakara Prathama Purush Ekvachanam, Lapsyate. Okay. See again, the same mechanism that we have seen before, just that sometimes the Sandhi changes, what Sandhi happens between these Padas. That is why the Rupa, the forms, they change. But the mechanism, the process, that is same. So anyways, Lapsyate, this is the Kriya Pada in Lit Lakara. And Lapsyamana, this is just the replacement of this Kriya Pada. How did we replace this? Everything is going to stay the same, just this Te, this Ting Pratyay is going to be replaced by that Shanacha Pratyay. So Ana. Again, Lapsya, this is ending with the A. So A ending Enga gets a Ma. We have often seen this before, we have already seen so many examples. So the form that you get is this Lapsyamana. That is what you see here, Lapsyamana, one who will be obtaining, the future tense, Lit Lakara. Okay, so I hope this example, these things, they are also clear. Okay, and these many examples are enough to understand Shanach Pratyay also. So I hope all the examples we took in this video, the Shatra and Shanach, they are plenty clear now. See, the scope of this video was not to understand how to create a Tinganta or how to create a Kriya Pada, but if we are taking Shatra and Shanach, and if we are saying that they are a substitute of these Kriya Pada in Lat and Lit Lakara, then I felt there was a need to at least understand the basic fundamental of how you create a Tinganta also. So that is why all those new mechanism in this video. But I hope with this, you also got a bit of a taste of how we create a Tinganta, at least in the Lat and Lit Lakara, and this idea that again Shatra and Shanach are just a substitute for this Lat and Lit Lakara, just they convey the same meaning. That idea was clear. Okay, I hope you had fun. See the entire point of this entire series and why the reason I took all the script suffixes in separate videos so that I can give plenty examples, plenty of time can be spent here, was this only, that when we deal with these things which are more technical, more grammar oriented, so when we practice these things, these mechanisms, they become easy. and the fear, the intimidation of these things, this goes away. That was the whole idea. So I hope I was able to do this with this series on Krit suffixes. Again, as I mentioned, there are many Krit suffixes, but for us, for our practical purpose, for us to be able to read Shastras and all, these many Krit suffixes which are very common, these are enough for us to understand. Later, we can now pick up any other set of suffixes, that is maybe Tadhita Pratyaya, that create a new Pratipadika. We will pick that up and we'll learn something about them also. Okay, just taking a taste of everything from here and there. Okay, so I'll meet you now with another video in some other topic. Take a leave now. I hope you had fun. I hope you keep learning Sanskrit. Vayam punah milamaha. Dhanyavad.